Hi scholars! Today we are going to continue learning about text-to-text connections. Now remember, a text-to-text connection is when we use one book and compare it to another. So we're going to think about the books that we've been reading in the past. For example, today we're going to be focusing on the book that we read in the past, Fang and Nugget, about the shark and the minnow friends. And we are going to connect that book to our book about Larry Gets Lost in Chicago. So this is a super cool book about a dog who gets lost in our very own city. So let's see how we can use our connections to help us better understand this new story. Larry Gets Lost in Chicago. This is Larry. This is Pete. On this page, we are learning that the characters in the story is a dog named Larry and a boy named Pete. They rode on a train, each one in his seat. Filled with excitement, they both wore a grin. A new city adventure was about to begin. Mom and Dad led the way from the big, busy train station to a water taxi waiting at a river location. Through the heart of the city, a river flowed. The water taxi made it seem like a regular road. Under several bridges, Pete and Larry passed. With no red lights, they traveled quite fast. The family walked for what seemed like a mile. So many shopping bags, so much style. Larry watched a man make hot dogs with all kinds of stuff. With toppings so high, would one bun be enough? Mustard and relish on every one, tomatoes, peppers, and a seeded bun. Celery salt, but no ketchup, was the final touch. Larry was sure Pete could not eat that much. Ooh, he's looking at him, eating that hot dog, and we know that he got it a Chicago-style hot dog. But eat it he did, and Larry's hunger remained. Larry knew not to beg. That was how he was trained. He tried to forget his tummy frustration as the family arrived at a railway station. Larry led them all up. They climbed stair after stair. In this part of town, trains are up in the air. On the platform they waited a minute or two when one of those hot dogs came into view. Larry pounced on it, happy to finally eat. But in the time that took, on this page, we're learning that Larry is getting very hungry because he sees Pete eating that ginormous Chicago-style hot dog, and he decides that makes him pretty hungry. So Pete is looking for some scraps to get. But I noticed in this picture, scholars, I see, if you look closely like I can, you see that Pete lets go of the leash when Larry is going to try to get the other part of the hot dog. I don't know what's going to happen to Larry. He had lost his friend Pete. He tried to make a quick reconnection, but the train he jumped on went in the other direction. He was soon happy to get out, being packed in so tight. Something big was happening at this round building site. Would one of these people in bright blue caps tell him where he could go to find Pete, perhaps? Pete, Mom, and Dad rode their southbound train past a different stadium with a different name. They saw trains that were big and planes that were small. And their search for Larry turned up with nothing at all. Pete saw a statue of a guy walking on air. Larry loved to play ball, but the pup wasn't there. Larry stood by a lion who lived in a zoo, thinking, thank goodness there's glass between me and you. He found a lake shoreline and ran. On the sand, there were boats in the water and one on land. He continued his search from way up high. But he could not see his friend in the sky. And the very same minute of that very same hour, Pete was also up high, but in a different tower. No help from a giant who had nothing to say, nor the strange-looking lady that pointed both ways. I don't know. Gotta keep reading to see if Larry's gonna find Pete. Meanwhile, Larry met a monster named Sue, saw beautiful paintings, old and new, then looked for Pete in a huge tank of blue. Larry passed around building but stayed far away. He heard people saying that's where bears play. Oh. Larry's so silly, he doesn't know better that the Bears are our football team. He ran through a park filled with bright, shiny steel, past a crowd listening to music in a field. One sculpture looked like a bean a giant robot might eat. Larry saw his reflection, and beside it was Pete. Ooh, what's happening on this page, scholars? If you said that Larry and Pete are back together, you're right. Larry was able to find his owner, Pete. This reminds me of when Fang and Nugget became friends again, and that Fang saved Nugget so that they could be together again. So that reminds me of what we read in Fang and Nugget. They jumped and they hugged. He wasn't lost anymore. Then Pete saw something they both could explore. Two giant faces smiled at them, blinking their eyes. Pete and Larry moved close and got a soaking surprise. They passed another fountain as they left this fun place, but this time kept their distance, just in case. They boarded a train and did their best to get dry, and to this fabulous city they said their goodbyes. Scholars, how do you think that Pete and Larry felt at the end of this story? Use the text, use the pictures. So, I think that Pete and Larry felt happy because you can see that they're kind of cuddling together in that picture, and because they were able to find each other again and be together. Just like how at the end of the book, Fang and Nugget, they were happy to be together because they had once been friends, and then people had told them that they couldn't be, until Fang was able to save Nugget. So that helped me better understand that in the end of the story, when Larry and Peter are back together, they're both happy. Alright, scholars, we are going to read some other books tomorrow and make some more connections. So, can't wait to see y'all there.